And I don't think either of those two would have been able to cope. They'd been anywhere else. And that was the only good thing that happened, was that they were there.
Princess Anne collapses to the floor after opening a sealed DNA report linking Princess Diana to a long-hidden child. One explosive result shatters decades of royal silence, forcing Anne to confront a secret powerful enough to threaten the monarchy from within. Anne collapses over the DNA report at Kensington Palace. Princess Anne, known across the kingdom as the most disciplined and tireless of the royals, sits alone in her private office inside Kensington Palace. Her desk is covered in briefing papers, handwritten notes, and memos for upcoming state visits. She has always been the one who never falters, the one who never shows weakness, the one who continues working even when others slip away from duty. But tonight, something interrupts her usual rhythm. Among the paperwork lies a plain, unmarked envelope sealed with deep red wax. No crest, no initials, no return path. Something about it draws her attention. Instead of sending it to security, she slides a finger under the wax and opens it herself. Inside, she finds a packet of documents from a private genetics laboratory. Two names appear immediately: Princess Diana, beloved by the public, forever linked to compassion and tragedy, and a second name Anne does not recognize. She scans the page quickly at first, then slowly as her breath tightens. The report shows full collection dates, chain of custody notes, and multiple genetic markers unmistakably aligned with Diana's profile, taken from archived medical samples. Then comes the line she cannot escape: a greater than 99.999% parent-child match. Anne's hand trembles, the paper slips, and then, for the first time in decades, she collapses. Staff rush in to find her on the floor, clutching the report to her chest, sobbing uncontrollably. Not because the idea of a hidden child shocks her, but because she now understands something far worse. Someone erased this person from history. Someone sacrificed a life to protect the monarchy she has defended her entire life. In that moment, Anne feels the ground beneath her beliefs shift. Everything she served may have been built on a silence she never knew existed, and now she must confront what this DNA report truly claims, because its implications could tear the kingdom apart. What the DNA test claims, and why it threatens the crown. Princess Anne forces herself to sit upright, breathing slowly as she reads the report again, this time line by line. The laboratory details are meticulous. Sample dates, genetic markers, and custodial signatures match standard forensic procedure. The first sample clearly belongs to Princess Diana, pulled from archived hospital records dating back to her pregnancies and medical stays. The second belongs to an adult now living under a changed identity, and the conclusion leaves no margin for interpretation: a near-absolute parent-child match. Anne grips the table. She knows the monarchy's foundation rests on bloodline, legitimacy, and clarity of succession. Every law, every title, every position of influence depends on the official family tree. A hidden child, kept secret deliberately, doesn't just add a new branch. It rewrites the root system. She remembers the years of whispers, old tabloid claims, obscure documentaries, strange online theories suggesting Diana had undergone medical procedures abroad, or fertility treatments, or secret stays at foreign clinics. These rumors had always been dismissed publicly, but they clearly had been circulating beneath the surface for years. Anne now realizes that someone, somewhere, had been collecting fragments of truth and burying them under layers of denial. The DNA report does not speak in riddles. It states plainly that the monarchy allowed a biological heir of Diana to vanish from public record. It suggests deliberate concealment, orchestrated at a level high enough to override medical archives, travel logs, and official documents. What makes Anne's chest tighten is not the scandal itself. It is the certainty that this was planned by people she trusted, people she defended, people she believed would never sacrifice a human life to protect the throne. With the truth now in her hands, Anne begins to see Princess Diana's past in a new light, and the memories come flooding back. Anne rereads her memories of Diana through the DNA shock. Princess Anne sits alone after the collapse. The DNA pages spread across her desk. Her mind drifts back to Princess Diana, the warm smile, the compassion, the courage that once shook the kingdom. She remembers Diana's visit to the Havenbrook Hospital H. Refuge ward, where she held patients' hands and said, "Heaven knows they need kindness." Anne had always admired her for that bravery, even if she never understood her emotional openness. Anne herself had built a reputation for being direct, disciplined, and unemotional, the royal who never bends, never cries. Yet tonight, she is undone by a single sheet of paper. She recalls private conversations where Diana hinted at truths too dangerous to speak aloud, and things kept safe for the future. At the time, Anne dismissed them as poetic exaggerations, part of Diana's dramatic nature. But now, those lines feel like coded warnings. She also remembers Diana secretly cooperating with the Morton biography, and later recording private tapes because she feared the palace narrative would erase her voice. Anne realizes Diana wasn't protecting only her story. She may have been protecting a person. It hits Anne with full force. She misread Diana's cries for help. Determined to uncover the truth, Anne turns to the forgotten gaps in Diana's past. Digging in the dark, Anne investigates Diana's missing months. Princess Anne locks the DNA report inside a secure drawer and requests access to Princess Diana's old papers. She frames it as preparation for a future memorial lecture, ensuring no one suspects her true purpose. Then she begins reading diaries, letters, appointment notes, travel logs. Patterns appear immediately. In the late 1980s, when Diana's marriage was collapsing, she took sudden breaks from public life, labeled as rest, health retreats, or minor procedures. Many occurred abroad, far from press oversight. Cross-checking palace calendars with flight manifests, staff assignments, and security logs, Anne identifies several weeks that could conceal a pregnancy carried under medical cover. The deeper she digs, the stranger the omissions become. Entire pages contain vague entries. Some logs are replaced with generic summaries. Medical notes list only routine care, despite stays long enough to suggest childbirth. One detail troubles her most. The pattern is too organized. Someone ensured these gaps looked harmless from a distance but empty upon inspection. Anne leans back in her chair, heart pounding. The missing months are not coincidence. They form a deliberate trail of silence. And when she cross-references these gaps with old rumors, a chilling connection emerges. Connecting the rumors, IVF, a secret daughter, and vanished records. As Princess Anne digs deeper, she pulls old news clippings and digital archives that mention strange rumors surrounding Princess Diana. Stories once dismissed as tabloid noise. Some claim Diana underwent fertility tests in the late 1980s. Others describe a mysterious IVF procedure where her eggs were supposedly fertilized for medical study. A few even reference a supposed secret daughter, though the details vary wildly. Anne reads these accounts with growing unease. Most are exaggerated, but certain dates match the missing weeks she found in Diana's schedule. Real clinic addresses, real doctors' names, real travel timelines. These coincidences pile up. She asks her aide to examine restricted ledgers from a private clinic in Switzerland, known for discreet royal treatments. What they find shakes her even more. Redacted entries, unsigned discharge notes, and a familiar royal physician whose name appears repeatedly. This doctor abruptly resigned in the early 1990s, officially for personal reasons. Now that excuse seems hollow. Anne realizes conspiracy theories did not invent themselves. They may have grown around buried fragments of truth, pieces someone tried to erase. To confirm her suspicions, she must trace what happened after Diana's death. The cover-up pattern. After Diana's death, the files go missing. Princess Anne studies the timeline around Princess Diana's tragic death in 1997. As she examines palace archives, she notices something alarming. Travel logs, clinic notes, and medical files from the late 1980s begin to thin out shortly after Diana's passing. Some are altered, others are missing entirely. She learns that government and palace investigators conducted DNA tests during inquiries into the crash, tests on drivers, security staff, even foreign officials. This proves the machinery for quiet DNA work already existed. It would have been easy to extend that machinery to Diana's private medical records. In the Switzerland clinic ledger, Anne's aide uncovers a single overlooked clue: An admission under an alias on the same date and with the same doctor as one of Diana's supposed stress treatments. The stay is long enough to cover childbirth. The attending doctor later left Europe and disappeared from public work. As Anne pieces the evidence together, the scale becomes clear. This was not the act of one rogue doctor or a panicked aide. It required coordination, senior palace figures, government contacts, and international discretion. For the first time, Anne understands the weight of what she has uncovered, a life erased and a history reshaped to protect the crown. And now, she must confront the one person who can confirm it, her own brother. Anne confronts Charles, duty versus a life erased. Princess Anne requests a private audience with King Charles, choosing a quiet afternoon when the palace halls are nearly empty. She enters his study carrying only 2 items, the DNA report and a handwritten timeline of Diana's missing months. Charles senses the tension immediately when Anne places the documents before him and says quietly, "You knew?" His expression reveals everything before he speaks. He does not deny it. Instead, he explains in controlled, administrative language that Princess Diana did have another child, born in secrecy during a clinic stay abroad. Only a handful of senior officials were informed. Charles insists the decision to hide the child was made during a volatile time, when Diana was overwhelmed and the monarchy faced growing public pressure. He describes it as an act of preservation, necessary to prevent the crown from collapsing under scandal. But Anne hears something else: justification, not remorse. She challenges him, voice breaking as she says, "Duty does not erase a person." Charles looks away, unable to answer. Anne leaves the room shaken, stunned that the institution she defended for decades could choose silence over humanity. She turns next to the one person who always knew how to survive palace politics, Queen Camilla. Camilla's cold game, how Diana's secret became political power. Princess Anne confronts Queen Camilla in her private salon, where the Queen often receives advisors and foreign guests. Camilla listens calmly as Anne lays out the evidence, the timeline, and Charles's admission. There is no surprise in her eyes. Instead, she offers a small, knowing smile. Camilla explains that she uncovered the truth years earlier through her own network of aides and former staff. She says she never used the information directly, but she understood its power. In a palace driven by perception, hierarchy, and secrets, knowledge becomes protection. "People think influence comes from titles," Camilla says softly. "It comes from what others cannot afford for you to reveal." She hints that this truth shielded her through decades of hostility, scandals, public rejection, political pressure. Anyone who attempted to undermine her position had to consider that she held a secret that could fracture the monarchy. Anne is horrified. To Camilla, the hidden child was a bargaining chip. To Diana, it had been a burden she carried alone. Camilla finishes with a warning. "Expose this, and you break more than the crown. You break everything holding it together." But Anne is no longer afraid. She needs to hear the story from the one person who lived it, finding Diana's hidden child, and hearing his side. Princess Anne ignores Queen Camilla's warning and orders a discreet investigation into the second name listed on the DNA report. Using quiet inquiries, sealed records, and a trail of outdated aliases, her team uncovers a man living a modest life on the outskirts of London outskirts, far from royal circles. His background is unusual: private schooling, sealed early medical files, and steady financial support from anonymous trusts. The pattern is unmistakable. When Anne meets him in a small rented house outside the city, she is struck immediately by the resemblance. Diana's eyes, the familiar tilt of her head, the same quiet intensity. He already knows why she has come. He explains that after Diana's death, letters were given to him through a guardian. In them, she describes the palace pressures, her attempts to shield him, and her fear that his existence would be used as a weapon. He says softly, "She wanted me safe, not hidden." He does not seek a title, recognition, or wealth. He simply wants his mother's truth acknowledged. Hearing this, Anne feels both heartbreak and clarity. Now she faces the hardest decision of her life, whether to expose everything or protect the crown she has served for decades. Anne's choice: reveal Diana's truth or protect the crown. back at Kensington Palace, Princess Anne. Princess Diana lays all evidence across her desk. The DNA analysis, missing records, clinic logs, Charles's admission, and her meeting notes. The weight of the decision presses on her. For the first time, she questions whether her lifelong service upheld a noble institution or protected a system built on sacrifice and silence. She thinks of Princess Diana walking through minefields, comforting the sick, and fighting stigma, acts of courage done publicly while privately carrying a secret child she was forced to surrender. Anne realizes Diana's greatest truth was not a scandal, but an act of protection for someone more vulnerable than herself. She meets the young man again and promises, "Your mother's truth will not die in darkness." But she knows exposing the secret risks destabilizing the monarchy, shattering public trust, and provoking retaliation from those who built their power on silence. In the final scene, Anne stands alone in her office, the DNA report trembling in her hand. She understands that one decision will either shake the kingdom's foundations or continue a lie that has already cost too much. The future of the crown now rests on whether she speaks or stays silent. As the palace braces for the storm this revelation could unleash, one truth remains. Princess Anne now holds the key to Diana's most guarded secret. Whether she speaks or stays silent, the monarchy will never be the same again. Subscribe for more deep royal investigations, hidden truths, and unfolding palace mysteries you won't hear anywhere else. Stay with us, there's more coming.